elections and pensions to order. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black,
Here.
Henderson,
Here.
Beck, Bratton, Berger, Crawford, Nicola, Nurrenbern. 6 present.
We have 6 present. We are going to begin by listening to Senate Bill 606, sponsored by Senator McCreery. Senator, please begin when you are ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate you hearing Senate Bill 606 today. I'm Senator Tracy McCreery. I represent portions of St. Louis County. I'm here today to present Senate Bill 606. I filed 606 to allow for more safe and secure elections when it comes to the processing of the absentee ballots. Under current law, if an absentee envelope, so the outer part of the ballot, is missing any required information, that must be rejected without giving the voter notice that it's being rejected. Senate Bill 606 would allow local election authorities to verify information on absentee envelopes. This bill would require election officials to notify voters when their absentee envelope is missing information, and it would allow for the opportunity for voters to come into the Board of Elections so they can supply missing information so that their ballot and their vote could be counted. Under this bill, voters would be prohibited from accessing, altering, or even seeing their ballot. So the ballot's inside the envelope remains sealed the entire time. This bill would give Missouri absentee voters, many of whom are older, they might also have a disability, or they could even be overseas serving their country. It would give these voters an opportunity to correct small errors or omissions on the envelopes so that their ballots within can be counted. Effectively, this bill would make sure the absentee voters are treated the same as voters who vote the day of the election. So if you remember when you go and vote day of, there's people there, staff that make sure you're doing it right the entire way. So this really is a way to equalize things and make sure that absentee voters are treated the same way as voters casting votes on the same day. As an example of why we need this bill, the House sponsor of this bill represents Cape County. In the November 2024 election, there were 29 absentee ballots rejected, and in St. Louis County, the county of which I represent part of, 1,312 absentee ballots were rejected. These numbers are significant, and I think it's really only fair to voters that they be given notification that their ballot and that their vote wouldn't count. So all of you should have received a substitute. My Chief of Staff, Emily, sent out the sub earlier. The substitute has a couple of changes from the original language. I specify in the substitute that the ballot and the ballot envelope remain with the election authority the whole time. So it doesn't get to leave and go to somebody's house or office. It stays with the election authority the whole time. And then I also wanted to allow, at the discretion of the local election authorities, the ability to deputize a county employee to assist in contacting voters who have incomplete envelopes. So, and I also wanted to be very clear that that person should not be related to anybody that's on the ballot. So there's some language in there as well. The reason I did that is when we heard from some of the clerks in smaller counties, they just don't have a lot of staff that can help with these things, so that would allow them to maybe pull someone from another department, have him or her be deputized to help call folks and have them come in. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Senator Crawford.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Do you know, Senator, why some of those ballots were rejected? Can you give examples, or did you give examples of that?
So there'll probably be some witnesses that talk about it. A lot of the ballots that were rejected are from people voters that are on the permanent disability list. So those are folks that probably have a lot of other challenges as well. In Cape Girardeau County, 15 of those 29 that were rejected were due to the lack of notary. So those, if this bill were in effect, those 15 voters would be given a chance to get their envelope notarized. And then 14 of those in Cape, the ballot got there after the deadline, so this bill does nothing for that. We don't. So in St. Louis County, we're still waiting to get the breakdown of that, but I suspect that it's a similar thing where the envelopes weren't notarized, or they're older people or folks with disabilities just struggling to jump through all the hoops properly.
Any other questions? Senator Nicola.
Senator, thank you. I had several questions. You did such a great job presenting this. You answered most of my questions, and mine was similar to Senator Crawford. Do you happen to have, because the number 1,300 rejected in just, is St. Louis County, is that right?
Yeah.
Do you happen to have any data, like for the whole state? How many of these?
I
I'm just
don't,
fascinated to know.
But there's someone here from the Secretary of State's office, so hopefully
Okay.
she can provide that information.
Yeah, because that sounds like a very high number of
Yeah.
rejections, right? That's
That's one of the
huge.
reasons why I wanted to file this bill is I think that, I think about my mother-in-law who's 88. She lives in a retirement community. It makes me sad to think that she would go through all this effort to research everything, and just because the envelope had something missing, that her vote just gets tossed away. It seems undemocratic.
Now, can you explain again? I know they can go to the election board, but is there other ways? Can they mail it back?
Yeah, I
what
think
other-
each county is different. In St. Louis County, I think the vast majority of the absentee ballots are mailed in using the U.S. postal system. But I know in elections past, there was a drop box right there too, where it was staffed by somebody so that you didn't have to park the car and go into the Board of Elections. So once the absentee ballot is in possession of the Board of Elections, then it never can leave. You can't, and we wanted to make sure, I'm trying to do a belt and suspenders approach to this so that everyone knows this is not about people changing their votes or anything.
Right.
It's just about, and the envelope never is opened. This is only about the outside of the
Right.
envelope.
So the only way that can be corrected is they have to go?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any, excuse me, any other questions of the Senator? Seeing none, thank you, Senator. Anyone testify in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Chris Ropey here on behalf of Secure Democracy USA, which is a national non-for-profit that deals with election security and integrity issues around the country. To answer a couple questions that I heard first, it's typically the person forgets to sign the absentee envelope, or they forget to get it notarized. I would venture a guess that's probably 99% of the time of what the issue as to why those get rejected. A little bit of history on why this happened. Previous to the voter ID law passing 3 or 4 years ago, whenever that was, there was the ability in statute for local election authorities to be able to do this. But a lot of clerks had some concerns with people coming in and trying to change how they actually voted once they maybe voted absentee and then said, oh, I changed my mind about this. The clerks wanted cover in state law to say, we can't change people's ballots when you come in and deal with that. And so that was a change that was put in statute, and then former Secretary Ashcroft changed the rule that now strictly prohibits LEAs from reaching out and being able to let somebody know you messed up, a technical error on the envelope. We aren't touching, and I think the senator did a very good job of putting security measures in the bill. So we're not changing the ballots. We're not allowing people to go and change anything that has to do with that, and that it is simply correcting that mistake. It also creates a very good security measure in place. If somebody's signature doesn't match up, and they reach out to that person, and it's an elderly person, they may say, I never voted, I was planning to go with my daughter on election day or whatever. So you're gonna have that contact to be able to do a better job of actually catching fraud if somebody is trying to do something nefarious. 33 states allow this, including Florida, Texas, Ohio, Indiana, a lot of very conservative states. Heritage Foundation, in fact, has 5 of their top 10 most secure election law states allow this. It's a very good measure to help keep our elections safe. And again, we do not want to touch the ballots or have that allowed to be accessible. That's why we say it has to stay in the LEA's possession, but it allows people to either by affidavit or they can go in person and correct that mistake on the envelope. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of this witness? I'm saying thank you. Anyone else testify in favor, please come forward. Please make sure you leave a witness form. And begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Connor Lubert testifying on behalf of the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. Our full testimony has been written out, and I'll hand that out to the committee, so I'll just be very brief. We'd like to thank the senator for bringing this measure. This measure provides needed support to voters who cast absentee ballots by mail, who may have inadvertently missed a checkbox or other information on the ballot outer envelope. And this disproportionately affects seniors, those with visual impairments, and people with disabilities. Overall, Senate Bill 606 provides a meaningful fix to ensure that the voters are not unnecessarily disenfranchised due to a minor omission on the ballot envelope that they can correct. Missouri Voter Protection Coalition urges this committee to vote in favor of this legislation. Thank you.
Any questions of this witness? Don't see any. Thank you very much. Anyone else testify in favor, please come forward. Please begin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Earl Sims. I'm the Public Policy and Advocacy Manager for Paraquad. Paraquad is a center for independent living that serves St. Louis City and St. Louis County. Thank you, Senator, for bringing the bill forward. We are in support of this bill because it really helps people with disabilities who may have some of the issues voting that the Senator said when she introduced the bill. We think that this is a very fair bill. It keeps election security. As the previous person said, 33 states, including Kentucky, Texas, Ohio, Florida, have these protections for voters. So I want to go on record in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next person testify in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Gallick representing Secure Election Project. We would like to go on record in support of Senate Bill 606. Appreciate Senator McCreery bringing it forward. I think Chris Ropey, Connor, Senator, did a great job explaining this. All my points were hit, so I appreciate the consideration.
Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else to testify in favor? Anyone? What timing?
That was perfect timing. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jacqueline Barjay. I'm a registered lobbyist here on behalf of Starling. Starling is a statewide association of service providers for individuals with developmental disabilities. I missed the testimony before me, but I won't reiterate what all of them have said. But just in general, most of our organization members, their missions revolve around ensuring that individuals with developmental disabilities can continue to live, work, and participate in the community. And voting is the biggest way that they can make sure that their voices are heard in the community. And this bill just ensures that their votes are counted, and simple, honest mistakes that can be made that can be fixed, and they can be reassured that their votes are being counted.
Any questions of this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else testify in favor?
Good afternoon, Katie Gamble here on behalf of the Missouri Association of County Developmental Disability Services, also commonly known as your SB40 boards. Want to go on record in support of the legislation for all the reasons previously stated regarding the help that this provides our DD community.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. Anyone else testifying in favor? Anyone testifying in opposition? Informational purposes only. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Leanne Hahn. I'm representing the Missouri Developmental Disabilities Council. We're a nonpartisan advocacy and education organization representing Missourians with IDD, or intellectual and developmental disabilities, and their families. I think just in general, knowing about the other barriers that people with disabilities face when trying to cast a private and independent ballot is important to know. I know a lot of the people have already stated some of the reasons that this measure is going to potentially remove barriers, but just want to demonstrate the reliance on the absentee system that the disability community has. So there's a couple of barriers to be aware of. Accessible buildings are in short supply, especially in rural communities. This is by no fault of the clerks. This is by no fault of anyone else. It's just some of those buildings are older and outdated. I know for a fact our clerks work very hard to find accessible locations, but that's not always possible. Also, a lack of transportation is a huge barrier for people with disabilities to access the polls. Missouri spends 11% of what Kansas and Nebraska spend per capita on transportation. We spend 7% of what Iowa spends. And so there's a lot of barriers that people with disabilities face when it comes to transportation, making absentee ballots heavily used by the IDD community. And finally, like lack of support staff. We've got, we're constantly working. The state is working very hard. Organizations like Starling are working very hard to get support staff for people, but that's a barrier. There's a high turnover rate with support staff. So as you consider this bill and think about the populations that were mentioned, aging population, disability population, could be argued that it's even more important that they have a say in their elected officials, because a lot of the systems that impact their lives are decided by our elected officials. So I hope that you consider this information as you consider this bill.
Thank you. Are there any questions of this witness? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
One more person I saw earlier, informational purposes. Please come forward. Begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Chrissy Peters, Director of Elections for the Secretary of State's Office. I wanted to share a couple of statistics that was asked for earlier. These are statistics from the November general election in 2024. We had 1,051,700 cast. The rejections and by the reasons not signed would be 1,101. Not notarized, 2,773. Incomplete information on the affidavit would be 115. Deceased after voting, 158. Received after the deadline, 912. And then other reasons would be 179. So other reasons can sometimes be like the ballot wasn't in the envelope, or there were two ballots in the envelope because it was a husband and a wife, other things like that.
Thank you very much for that information. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Senator Crawford.
Just real quick, did you say 100 and some that voted after they were deceased? I mean, what was that number?
Deceased after voting, 158.
I thought we passed legislation that allowed those votes to be counted.
Correct. If it is tabulated through, in person through a central tabulation, it can be counted. But if it is still sealed in the envelope and there is information that the person has deceased after, it's not a shall type of situation
Okay.
in the law.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anyone else to testify informational purposes only? I don't see anyone. Senator McCreery,
I just
any
wanted
closing
to,
comments?
Yeah, Senator Crawford asked about some of the numbers. So in this most recent April election that's tomorrow, in St. Louis County, about 90% of the rejections so far are voters on the permanent disabled list. And then during the November 2024 election in St. Louis County, like I said, 1,312 ballots were rejected. Nearly 60% of those rejections were ballots from disabled voters. So it's pretty obvious to me that this is something, if we want to do something to help our disabled neighbors here in Missouri, this would be a really big help. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Gallery, we're going to go into executive session here in a moment, as long as the people up here in the committee will approve it. I move that we go into executive session. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say aye. We are in executive session. I move to bring up House Committee Substitute, House Bill 73. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Is there any discussion on House Committee Substitute, House Bill 73? The list was shared with you earlier last week. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Seeing none, I move that we do pass House Committee Substitute, House Bill 73. Do I have a second? I have a second. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black, Henderson, Beck, Bratton, Berger, Crawford, Nicola, Nurrenbern.
By your vote of 8-0, you have do pass House Committee Substitute, House Bill 73. I move to bring up House Bill 233. Do I have a second? I have a second. Is there any discussion with anyone about House Bill 233? The committee sub that was added, thank goodness I have Matt, correct? Was the Regional Planning Commission language, and we've heard that. It's a piece of legislation that I have found. Had other people contact us about a couple amendments that didn't fit underneath the title. I will share that with the committee as well. Okay, any discussion? I move to adopt the Senate Committee sub for House Bill 233. Do I have a second? I have a second. We've been explained what's in the sub. Is there any other questions? I move that we do pass Senate Committee substitute for House Bill 233. Do I have a second? I have a second. Matt, would you please call the roll? Ooh, I jumped forward, right? Thank you, Senator Bratton. Yeah, we need a little voice vote first. Thank you, sir. All those in favor of the changing to Senate Committee substitute House Bill 233, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Now I move we do pass Senate Committee substitute for House Bill 233. Do I have a second? Thank you. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black. Henderson. Beck. Bratton. Berger. Crawford. Nicola.
No.
Nurrenbern.
By your vote of 7-1, you have do pass Senate Committee substitute for House Bill 233. I now move to bring up House Joint Resolution 23 and 3. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion on this House Joint Resolution? I think we have a senator with a similar one in the group. I move that we do pass House Joint Resolution 23 and 3. Do I have a second? I have a second. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black.
All right.
Henderson. Beck. Bratton. Berger. Crawford. Nicola. Nurrenbern.
By your vote of 8-0, you have do pass House Joint Resolution 23 and 3. Now I move to bring up Senate Joint Resolution 35. Do I have a second? I have a second. Is there any discussion about SJR35? We supported it a second ago. I move that we do pass Senate Joint Resolution 35. Do I have a second? Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black.
Aye.
Henderson. Beck. Bratton. Berger. Crawford. Nicola. Nurrenbern.
By your vote of 8-0, you have do pass Senate Joint Resolution 35. Okay, folks, let's stay on the list. I move we bring up Senate Bill 710. Do I have a second? I do have a second. Is there any discussion around Senate Bill 710? Senator Nurrenbern.
Thank you. We do have a committee substitute.
Okay, Senator Nurrenbern has a Senate Committee substitute. Senator Nurrenbern, would you explain the substitute before we go to rolling it in, please?
Yeah, this is simply, it is for that purpose to put 710 and 713 together.
Okay. Anybody have any questions what the purpose of substitute is? Roll both of them together. All those in favor of the Senate? I move to adopt the Senate Committee substitute. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? It's now been adopted. I move that we do pass Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bills 710 and 713. Do I have a second? I have a second. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black,
Aye.
Henderson. Beck. Bratton. Berger. Crawford. Nicola. Nurrenbern.
By your vote of 7-1, you have do pass Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bills 710 and 713. I move to bring up House Bill 939. Do I have a second? I have a second. Is there any discussion? Senator.
I will probably, if the chair wants to support it out of committee, will. I have some questions if we're maybe going too far, going all the way back date across the entire state. But I do want some of these things done too with the EV and the requirements on the EV and the solar panels. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the committee before we look at voting this? I move to do pass House Bill 939. Do I have a second? I have a second. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black.
Aye.
Henderson. Beck. Bratton. Berger. Crawford. Nicola. Nurrenbern.
By your vote of 6-2, you have do pass House Bill 939. Now we're moving to House Bill 1086. I move to bring up House Bill 1086. Do I have a second? I have a second. Discussion. Senator Beck.
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment. I think it's been distributed to everybody in the committee. I apologize for the confusion on this. Before I state the amendment, I will let you know that I'm offering this to be able to vote yes to get it out of committee, and then I still believe that the bill needs more work. So just so that's being said. But this amendment would simply add after home owned by a sole proprietor, individual, partnership, or limited liability company. That would add those things in there. It would leave out other corporations that are buying properties and things of that nature, hedge funds and all that stuff. So it was kind of on order of what the senator from the 11th and myself have offered in other ways. But this is strictly on this Airbnb language. And quite frankly, I still believe that if you're using a home to make a living off of, that it should be considered commercial if that's the home is the business. But that being said, I'll let this get to the I shouldn't say allow. With this language on it, I'll be able to vote yes in committee.
Any other senators have any discussion about the amendment? It was distributed. Hopefully you can see it in front of you. Okay. The senator has offered an amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? We are voting on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The amendment passes. Yeah, we're going to roll it. I now move that we roll the amendment that we just passed into House Bill 1086, which means we would have Senate Committee sub. All those in favor of that motion to roll the amendment in, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we have in front of us a Senate Committee substitute for House Bill 1086. Anybody got any questions? I move to do pass Senate Committee substitute for House Bill 1086 as amended. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black. Aye. Henderson. Aye. Beck. Bratton. Berger. Crawford. Nicola. Nurrenbern.
By your vote of 8-0, you have due passed House Bill 1086. Okay, now the final bill, and I sent that out with text. I don't remember whether it completely made it on all the notices, but I know the members of the committee knew we were going to talk about this. This is Senate Bill 141, which is language being proposed to work on the sheriff's retirement system in our state. Many of you know that we've been working on that, and we can go back with a historical lesson, but I don't think that needs to happen. The funding mechanism was stricken down in the courts. We've went a few years without any money going into the sheriff's retirement system other than some dollars appropriated through the state. This is a work in progress. I wish I could tell you that it was done. We're getting much, much closer, and I've asked senators to support passing this. Our role will be to end up with language that's not everybody's probably going to be happy with when it's done on any side, but then hopefully we find a path to get this fixed and sent back to the House with a bill that we've decided will work for a funding source. Does any other senators want to have any discussion with this before I bring it before the meeting? Yes, Senator Berger.
Senator, I want to thank you for being open to discussions we've been having the last week. I appreciate that very much. We had a good meeting in my office today to talk about this going forwards, and I think we'll get where we want to be. Like you said, not everybody's going to be satisfied, but I think we're going to get a sheriff's retirement plan.
Anybody else? Senator Crawford?
I concur with Senator Berger. We appreciate you working with us, and I think we will get to a conclusion or get to an answer here fairly quickly.
Okay. We're going to see how well this committee trusts somebody like me, right? I move that we do pass Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 1. Oh, I thought we'd already done that earlier. No, we need to adopt a Senate Committee Substitute, folks. I apologize. I have a Senate Committee Substitute. I move for its adoption. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The substitute's been adopted. I move we do pass Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 141. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Senators Black.
Aye.
Henderson. Aye. Beck. Bratton. Aye. Berger. Aye. Crawford. Aye. Nicola. Aye. Nurrenbern.
By your vote of 8-0, you have due pass Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 141. I made fewer errors. I move that we leave executive session, return to open session. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. We are out of executive session. Thank you. We're going to let a little transition happen, and then Representative McGurl, you will begin. Thank you to all of you that attended the committee meeting to this point. We have, if I remember right, 4 more bills that we're going to listen to. And representatives, don't think that we're not paying attention to you, but 2 of us do have a committee meeting at 3:15. We're going to have to leave. I will come back when it's over if we are in, okay? And I'm not putting any push on you. I just want you to know when I get up and leave, and Senator Crawford gets up and leave, we're not mad at you leaving, okay? Okay, Representative McGurl, please begin. We're talking about House Bill 629, if I have it on my notes correctly.
That is correct, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. representative for District 118, Northern Washington County, Southern Franklin County. And what 629 does is it brings personal property tax. I'm going to hit the highlights of it, and then I'll explain what the mechanics of it. The first thing it does, it reduces that assessment rate from 33 1/3 to 30%. The second thing that the bill does, it brings the personal property tax in under the calculation when they do the rate certification to establish the levy. So it brings it in under Hancock or CPI, whichever is lower. And then the third thing it does is it brings the State Tax Commission on selecting the guide for assessors. It will they will select it, bid it out, which would help with the cost of providing that to the assessors. Now, what my rate does, the reason why I have a rate reduction there is because from 20 to 23, there was almost $500 million in windfall that was brought about by the increase in used vehicle assessments. And so what the bill does, it brings personal property tax from, right now, it's included with new construction. It will be brought in with real estate tax, and then the rate, when they do the rate certification to establish the levy, it will allow these increases to be capped at that CPI or Hancock. And so consequently, from 20 to 23, like I said, there was almost $500 million in windfall that was collected by political subdivisions, and that includes schools, and yes, they are the biggest recipient of the tax dollars, but still, this was going on during a time when there was a lot of other money that was coming in to these political subdivisions, whether it was American CARES money, whether it was American Rescue money, or ARPA money. So these political subdivisions were receiving additional funds. So, but I think it comes to a fairness with our taxpayers that, because personal property tax valuations, and I could use myself as an example, my valuation from 20 to 21 went up, and then from 21 to 22 it took another jump, particularly on the used. And just kind of grabbing a couple of articles over the weekend, with the tariffs that are going to be assessed to the vehicles, particularly foreign cars coming into the country, they said, one article says, Pandemic Woes Part 2. So we're looking at this possibly, maybe not to the magnitude of the pandemic, but it's going to bring these prices up of used vehicles. And so consequently, this is, to me, it's a fairness issue to our taxpayers, because ordinarily vehicle valuations go down from year to year. That's pretty much the history. But there's been a couple of instances, and particularly a pandemic, and then also we face that possibility again, that we could have these increases. If you bring them in under the calculation, that way it will cap those assessments at whatever the real estate is. Right now, when they set the levies, they calculate that levy when they do the certification through the state auditor's office. They bring that, they base that levy on just the real estate. And so by bringing the personal property tax in there, it will keep these fluctuations from being increased substantially. And because what happens presently, they establish a levy, then that levy, whatever that assessed valuation of that personal property tax, that is what gets taxed. Whenever they take the assessed valuation divided by 100 and multiply it by the levy, they established it. It's not reducing that levy, and so consequently, this what my bill does is just brings that personal property tax in under Hancock or CPI. And in addition, since there was this windfall, that's why I have the rollback by the rate reduction in the assessed valuation multiplier. And so with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Senator Henderson.
Representative McGrew, I like this bill. I like what you do because you move it back, you give some people back some of the money on it, but it doesn't go so far that we're going to maybe devastate some of these rural communities with some of this.
No, my intention is not to eliminate personal property tax. I'm not trying to hurt political subdivision, but political subdivisions, should be in a, like I had mentioned with all this additional money that has flowed in to these various counties and municipalities and various political subdivisions, they should have been in pretty good shape.
I agree with you. And then I think you've got a section in here changing how they're going to value the cars on that too. So who pays for that?
Presently with the assessment books, the assessors will pay that amount. That's the way it's done presently, because when you look at the assessment fund, they have not all assessors, but a majority of them do have funds available to purchase those manuals.
Well, I think there's a pretty big source in that. You know the number on that?
It's a little over 70 million.
Okay. So they have enough money to purchase those, to do that, to try to do that with the cars, and then you're trying to take it down from 33 1/3 to 30% basically.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Crawford.
What is the population of your county, Representative?
One county is 25,000 and the other one is 106,000.
So I just really want to make a point here. I come from a county of like under 18,000, and just this weekend, everybody knows I'm married to a presiding commissioner. He was talking about their revenues and how their revenues right now are just now even with 2022 revenues. And a lot of those political subdivisions in my county did not get a large windfall from ARPA funds and all that, nor did my county. We got very little. What they used their funds for was to do some much needed upgrades that they would never have the money to do again. So I disagree that they all have a large windfall. And I'm getting to the point very quickly to where I'm going to vote against all these bills that do things negatively to the county. So I just want to put everybody on notice that that's going to happen, and it might happen with this bill. I'm not sure. I do like parts of it. I like the NADA part, but I really just wanted to make the point that whenever COVID happened, the sales tax in our counties went down like this because everybody bought everything online, and it's still not back up to where it was, and it will continue to do that. And if your county's like mine, they haven't passed Wayfair yet, which even makes it worse for our county. So I'm here to watch out for my county especially. I mean, all 9 of them, but I know firsthand on what it looks like on my county. So really just more of a comment, and then I wanted to find out how big your counties were. But I appreciate the idea. I see where you're coming from, and nobody likes to pay taxes, but we've got to at least provide the services, the bare services that we need. So I appreciate you bringing the bill forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. And to my point, I'm not trying to eliminate and I'm not trying to hurt these political subdivisions, but at the same time, our taxpayers who their assessed valuation went from $5,000 to $6,500 from one year to the other on a used vehicle. And now with us facing that possibility again, I feel like we should also be on the watch for our taxpayers to make sure that they are not being overcharged.
And I agree with you on that manner too, and I think Representative Reedy's bill will fix that to where they can't go back up, and I will be in favor of that one because I do think that will protect the taxpayers from it going back up too. Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Berger.
Representative, can you explain the rate certification for the rollback? You said that earlier, but what were you talking about?
Okay, when you establish the levy that actually goes on the tax bill, you have your assessed valuation, real estate assessed valuation. That is, information is collected by the clerks, and then that's sent in to the pro formas, is sent in to the state auditor's office. And then what they do is they take last year's total real estate assessed valuation and this year's rate assessed valuation, and they do a divider there to see what the rate has changed. If the valuations, if the rate has went down, the valuation has went down, then the levy will go up because they are still allowed to collect under that either CPI or Hancock on the real estate. Or if the valuations go up, they still are tied to that, so the levy may have to go down in order to compensate for that increase in the valuation. And then that's put together, and then, like I said, the personal property tax, it's a separate and included with the new construction, because see, new construction, whatever the valuation of new construction, whatever that rate that's been established, it's applied to that. So it's not subject to Hancock or CPI. And that's why with the personal property tax, they should be just treated the same way as real estate. I mean, it's, to me, it's just being fair and being equal across the board, whether it's real estate or personal property tax.
Senator Brennan.
Just a brief comment and then a question or two. Do you know how much tax revenue was raised just last year off of property taxes nationwide?
Now, in Missouri, it was a little over $1.9 billion.
So just under $1 trillion was, taken from taxpayers in this nation. $1 trillion. That's insanity, the amount of taxation on our property. Did you know there's about over 6.1 million people that are basically in default of their loans and about to foreclose nationally right now?
No, but I have read some business articles where there's cases, and I've also seen where the state of Florida is working on eliminating their real estate tax totally, because they think it's, they said that it's a burden on people. Here you buy something, and then you have to pay on it for the rest of your life. So,
if it pleases the crown.
So I don't really look at this bill as being extreme. I think it's a little more protective of these valuations not being increased to, so that we don't get these out of proportion increases that could happen.
Yep. Well, I was elected to being a county auditor back in 2018, was one for 2 years before I moved into this position. And since I left that office, my county of Cass County, it's a first-class county, and I understand that, but its budget has over doubled. And I've seen this not in just, county governments and school districts and virtually every other local entity. But yet when you talk to taxpayers knocking on their door, has their budget doubled? When you knock doors to get elected, did you know of all the taxpayers that had their budgets doubled?
No, I hear more, it goes the other way.
Well, and that's exactly my point. I mean, people can only bear so much taxation. We're having a shortage of child care, not because, honestly, because moms or even dads want to have to go to work, but it's because their tax burden is literally so astronomically high. We have a cost of living has increased so exponentially. People can't afford to live, and yet we have areas in this state that are increasing their valuations 500, 600, 700, 900, like in my mother-in-law's instance in Jackson County, 900%. But then all I hear is that, these poor taxing districts, just what are they going to do? While we have moms and dads that can't even afford to put food on their table. I mean, at what point are we going to start drawing the line? I mean, that's where I'm just like, man, I wasn't elected by
my fire district. I was elected by the people who are paying the taxes into that. And we've got a system that's so out of equilibrium. I mean, it's up to us to actually, reestablish the sanity. And again, I understand they may have to make some tough cuts, but my God, so was every taxpayer that has elected us. I mean, they've had to make those tough decisions.
Yeah, and it's just like, when you look, and again, I'm not picking on any political subdivision in particular, but, obviously schools draw the biggest portion of our levy, tax levy. Well, if you, information off of the DESE website, in their general fund, in their funding, in their surplus money, there's over $3 billion, and they drew almost $300,000 in interest. So, I mean, and that's cumulative. And of course, you look at individual school districts, and yes, there's some of them that have a lot of money, and there's some that don't. But still, I just want to point that out, that I don't think that this bill will devastate any political subdivision. I mean, that they can't make an adjustment for the difference. I mean, we all have to live within our means.
Yep.
And I just think that, this won't devastate them. They may have to make some adjustments, but I don't think it'll be the kind of adjustments that would hinder them from providing the services that we want out of our various political subdivisions.
Well, have you been seeing what's going on with the stock market currently? I know with all the tariffs and stuff, I mean, it's been kind of, it's pretty bad. Now, could you imagine if people were paying taxes on their unrealized gain, that they had invested at this dollar, and it had finally got to where they had a nest egg, and then it started to tank. But imagine if we were taxing at some arbitrary number that somebody was elected and pulled out of thin air what they thought their money was worth.
Well, that's what's happening when these personal property tax, you're being taxed on a gain that you're not realizing.
And that's my point. And I think that's where we as the elected officials need to realize that yes, while we need to have revenue going into essential services, we need to also realize the type of taxation, if it's a massive burden or if it's completely and totally wrong to do to people. And that's where I think this unrealized gains taxation that we've adopted as in terms of property tax needs a really hard look. And I'm not trying to hijack your bill, but this is one thing that really hits home, because again, as a county auditor, I saw all this massive increase in funding, and then all I hear down here is like crying a river that the sky is going to fall if we even help the little guy. But I appreciate you doing at least something, and I think this bill at least takes it some portion. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions of the representative? Seeing none. Is there anyone here testifying in favor of the bill? Anyone testifying in opposition of the bill?
Scott Kimball on behalf of the Missouri Association of School Administrators. We would like to go on record in opposition to the bill. There are a couple provisions in the bill that we have issue with, but I think that the point that I would bring up first is, yes, it's a 3.3% cut in the rate, but it's a 10% cut in the revenue, and it's in perpetuity. And so, yes, there were gains realized due to the increases in 2021 and 2022, but to insert these cuts and make them in perpetuity is something that we're incredibly concerned about. There was a lot of discussion about the fluctuations from 2021 and 2022, and we understand that, and that's why we're also in support of House Bill 816 from Representative Reedy, because it does cure that issue moving forward, so that if future issues with tariffs do cause vehicles to increase, the taxpayer is going to be protected. And so we are absolutely in favor of that bill, but this bill as drafted is just something that we cannot support. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Anyone else testify in opposition? Anyone testify informational purposes only? Did I miss, is this opposition, sir? I'm sorry. Or information or?
Information.
Information. Thank you. Please come forward, state your name, begin.
Okay, my name's Kenny Moore. I'm a Boone County Assessor. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri State Assessors Association. I had a hard time deciding whether I was going to oppose this bill or what I was going to do for informational purposes. So forgive me if it sounds like I'm being a little negative on some of the bill. But to start off with, I do agree with the fact that counting any new construction on any difference in personal property gain apart as removing it from new construction, I'm in favor of that. That would help. Some of the issues that I do have, there is not a mechanism, I think we've kind of gone over this a little bit, there's not a mechanism to keep vehicles from going up. In other words, we're still using the average trade value. As has been mentioned before, just with tariffs, I foresee where used car values could go back up. We could be looking at another 2020 or 2021. Believe me, I lived through that. it was not pleasant. I didn't like it. Neither did my taxpayers. Lowering the assessment ratio from 33 1/3 down to 30%. In Boone County, my 2024 total assessed value of personal property was $823 million. I know that sounds like a lot. Boone County is a large county. By doing that, my assessed value would lower to $739 million. I'd lose roughly $5.6 million in revenue. Now, what would happen is if a lot of the taxing jurisdictions are not at their ceiling, they will increase their rate to offset that revenue loss. What that's going to do is that's going to shift that tax burden over to real property, primarily residential. So one of the common themes I've heard down here this year, and I'm down here a lot testifying, is we don't want to tax people out of their houses. Shifting the tax burden from personal property to real property would just add to that. The other issue that I have, let's see here. It would impact rural counties harder than it would impact Boone County, primarily because they do not have the sales tax revenue that Boone County generates. A lot of these counties depend on this revenue from property taxes in order to float their fire districts, their ambulance districts. And I'm afraid if we go in there and we cut, like we're talking about here, it's very possible that some of these would suffer and have to stop services. Anyway, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. By the way, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I apologize. I should have said this at the beginning. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Any questions of this witness? Yes, Senator Bratton.
Thank you. So you mentioned that in Boone County, it would be a decrease in 5.9 or 5.6?
About 5.6 million, yes.
But I guess who would that go back to?
Who would they go back to? Well, and it could go back to the taxpayers. But as I stated before, if the taxing jurisdictions are not at their ceiling, they can increase their levy and to offset some of that. And like I said before, that's going to shift to the real property owners, primarily residential property owners.
Okay. But so by increasing it, I mean, it just kind of gives them an out for being able to still continue that an increased rate, though. That's by them not having to raise their levy. So you kind of give them an out so where it puts them on the hot seat. If they want to increase taxation, they have to raise their levy, where you're giving them an out to where if you increase that, then they get to keep it the same and they get a windfall, correct?
It's possible, yes.
Okay. So I guess that's kind of the point is, what has been the revenue increase, I guess, since 2020 to current, I guess, in the county proper for all jurisdictions, for the taxing districts on property?
You mean total tax revenue that Boone County collects?
Yeah, not on sales tax, but on the property.
No, just on property taxes?
Yep.
We're about $250 million.
$250 million
Yes.
increase since 2020?
No. I would say since 2020, we've probably seen somewhere in the neighborhood of somewhere around probably 10 million, 15 million.
So you've seen an increase. So even if it went down $5 million, it would still be a $5 million increase over time span, correct? I mean, so it's not like you're losing money, right? I mean, I guess
No,
you're losing the increase, but you're not like, it's not like fire departments are going to be shutting down and schools are going to have to shutter because we just kind of keep rates low.
Well, I mean, in Boone County, most of the fire districts, most of them, like the city of Columbia and such, they're funded through sales tax. Now, our rural fire protection district, that's funded through property taxes.
Right.
So it would hurt them if
Well,
they
but
lost that revenue.
Well, it wouldn't be a loss. I mean, it would kind of keep it at the same rate, correct?
If they are not at their ceiling, then they can raise their rate. But if they're at their ceiling, they lose that revenue.
Yeah.
Without going to the voters and asking for more.
But it's a loss. That's why I'm trying to. But it's a loss of increased revenue, is what it is. So it's not a loss of revenue. It's a loss of an increase.
I don't follow what you're saying there.
Well, if
I mean,
if it's an increase and it's set to continue to go up, and they continue to get more and more from the previous year, that would be an increase.
If the assessed value continues to grow, you're correct.
Has your assessed valuation since 2020 gone up?
Yes.
What's been the rate of increase since 2020?
Well, since 2020, we had 2 years that were anomalies there because of the COVID pandemic. I mean, those were roughly about 20% in those 2 years. So, in a standard year or a normal year, it's not uncommon for personal property to increase somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4 to 5%.
Okay. So, I mean, economically, though, if we see that we brought up the tariffs and we brought up just kind of the potential for foreclosure, mass foreclosure, I mean, what they're reporting of around 6.1 million, that's pretty substantial. Building materials going down. I mean, so what happens if there's a market crash like a 2008? What would you, I guess?
As far as you mentioned building materials going down, I don't foresee building
Not
materials
going down, I mean, going up, and building going down is what I admit.
It's possible. I mean, we've seen a slowdown in building over the last couple of years, and primarily it's been to interest rates being high, and they were starting to come back down. But with the tariffs and some nervousness in the markets, we've seen interest rates start to creep up. So, I mean, it is very difficult for a first-time home buyer to buy a home. I will grant you that. There is really an affordable house in Boone County anymore. What used to be $175,000 is upwards around $300,000.
Yeah, well, I guess that's my point. In the type of system that we have, it continues to go up. It continues to price things so far out of it to where you're actually not able to expand your tax base at all, because we've created a system that is completely unaffordable by all people. And then we're going to soak the remaining people that are, able to barely hang on. And that's where if not a bill like this, if not, I mean, what's the solution?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we mentioned here already is the new construction, okay? You're talking about growth. And new construction is subtracted right off the top in rate setting. I mean, they subtract that right off the top of any growth. So in an odd numbered year, a reassessment year, yeah, they're going to see some growth just due to the general reassessment. But in an even numbered year, when I'm adding basically all new construction for the most part, they're not going to see much of an increase. So it's only in the odd numbers year that they might see something to that effect. Another issue is we've got issues where there's a lot of rates they just don't roll back. And, that's a problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Crawford.
Thank you for being here today. I just have one question. Do you think expenses in the county have gone up since 2020?
I'm sure they have, yes, ma'am.
So that's one piece that we're not talking about. While revenues may have gone up, the expenses have too. So I think I think it's important to bring that out too. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else, informational purposes only? Any closing comments?
Yes, thank you, Senator, Mr. Chairman. I think some of my witnesses made my point because when you talk about new construction is taken off the top. Right now, personal property tax is also included with that new construction and taken off of the top, so that rate, when it's certified, the levy, it's applied to those high numbers and not numbers that's been regulated by either CPI or Hancock. And so consequently, I think this is a fairness issue, and so thank you for hearing my bill.
Thank you. Next on the list, Senator Mayhew, House Committee Substitute, House Bill 643. Senator Mayhew, there's two of us getting ready to leave as well to go to a meeting. Did I say Senator? I'm so used to you telling me what to do. It works that way, Representative.
Yes, Senator, I'm in your committee, so I'll refrain from a humorous comment.
Oh, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee, for hearing House Bill 643. This concerns entertainment districts, and no, I am not offended by having to go to committee hearings. I have to do the same thing frequently myself. The fact is that you've heard essentially this bill on Senate Bill 482. It is essentially the same. There's a slight difference in when we did a House Committee substitute that essentially allows it to consider two different properties at Lake of the Ozarks. One of them is in Lake Ozark, Missouri, at a location that we affectionately refer to as the Strip. This was one of the original commercial areas at Lake of the Ozarks when it was constructed. It's an eclectic collection of bars, restaurants, nightclubs, and other entertainment venues, but it's getting a little thread-worn, as some of you may have noticed the last time you were there. It suffers from a lot of those things that are common to urban downtown areas. Older structures, small businesses on a very small footprint, and don't have the room to expand. The entertainment zone will allow businesses to get together and share common infrastructure as an amenity for all of their common good. It will also allow for specific events, special events, music venues, and those kind of things that come in temporarily. The other location is actually a new venue in Osage Beach, Missouri, that's being constructed as an amusement park. The idea for entertainment zones is not new. We have 7 of them that have been approved throughout the state. Power and Light District in Kansas City, Ballpark Village are 2 examples. I want to point out that there was a $0 fiscal note on this, and with that, I will take any questions.
Senator Nurrenbern, you have any questions? No questions? Okay. Anybody here to testify in support? Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Senator. Members of the committee, my name is Jeff Abusi. I'm a registered lobbyist for Lakeport Development. They are the developer in Osage Beach that the representative referred to. It will consist of a 400-plus room hotel, a water park, amusement park, numerous restaurants. It will be a self-contained compound which will allow people to roam freely, just like in Power and Light District in Kansas City and also Ballpark Village. Cost of this project will be somewhere around $500 to $600 million. It's currently under construction now. We're here to support the bill and ask for your approval. I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else to testify in support? I think I know this guy too.
Thank you, Chairman, committee member. I'm Rocky Miller. I'm a registered lobbyist for Lake Economic Alliance for Development, which essentially are the small businesses on the Strip. This would allow us to have an entertainment zone. It allows for small businesses on the Strip area to form that entertainment district to allow them to provide enhanced services to their customers in the form of paving, parking, and security. This bill also allows for open container in the district. Currently, the small businesses have a hard time enforcing this very localized area of the Strip. If passed by the city, it will protect these business licenses, the livelihood of the owners, and the jobs of the workers. And if you have any questions, I'll take them.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support? Anybody to testify in opposition? Seeing none, anybody for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Representative, you're ready to close.
I close. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Senator.
Representative Reedy, if you come forward and present House Bill 816, please. And begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for hearing my bill today. I'm Representative Roger Reedy. I represent District 57, which is parts of Benton, Pettis, and Johnson County in West Central Missouri, which is home of the Whiteman Air Force Base. I'm here today to present House Bill 816. It's a Taxpayer Protection Act. It came through committee with no opposition rules, no opposition, and passed the House 157-0. This addresses two things: the problem that took place back in 2020 to 23 when car valuations went up, which in turn caused people's taxes to go up on the same vehicle. I just fundamentally don't think that when you have a vehicle that's a year older, 30,000 more miles, that you should be paying more tax on that car. But the reason that happened was as the used car market went up, right now in the present statute, it says that the assessor shall use the October issue of the NADA book to come up with their value. I don't really think we should be naming a certain company that we have to use in the state. So what my bill would do would take that out, and it would allow the tax commission to bid with reputable sources for that valuation source, and they would select, secure, and share that data with the assessors. The assessors then would use the trade-in value of the October issue, and this would create consistency statewide. This would be something important to do. It does that, and the second thing, which is the favorite part of my bill, is just plainly says that no vehicle can be assessed for more in the present year than it was in the previous year. So that would alleviate these vehicles from ever going up again and these people getting tax increases that was undue to them. This bill protects our taxpayers. At the same time, it does not hurt our fire districts, our ambulance districts, and police departments within the cities. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Representative, thank you for bringing it. So what you're saying, if I read it correctly, that basically couldn't happen again where I've got a 5-year-old truck and all of a sudden it's worth, or a 4-year-old truck and it's worth more than it was the year before. Your bill would preclude that. Is that correct?
Right. Even, if we see this used car market or used vehicle market go up again, still the assessor cannot assess for more than they were in the previous year.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from Senator Berger? Because it's just the two of us. Okay. Seeing none. Anybody here to testify in support? And proceed when you're ready, sir.
Thank you. My name name's Kenny Moore. I'm the Boone County Assessor. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri Assessors Association as well. The correction in this bill has been long overdue. Naming a single source guide in statute raises a question of constitutionality. Over the last 4 years, the price I have paid for the NADA, now J.D. Power, used car guide has increased from $30,000 to over $60,000. I believe they are taking advantage of the fact that they are the single source guide listed in statute. When the Assessors Association used to get the guide statewide, and it used to run about $60,000, $80,000 roughly for the whole state. Now the last time it was bid, it was upwards around $1 million. So it's cost prohibitive. So allowing the State Tax Commission to select, secure, and do it through a competitive bid process and make available to the county assessors the guide would be a great benefactor for the county assessors. If I can make any recommendations to the bill, it would be two things. One would be that there's an annual appropriation to allow the State Tax Commission to secure the guide. The other thing would be the State Tax Commission has to provide the data in some kind of electronic database format. Other than that, I urge the committee, please, to pass this bill through. I have any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. I've got one statement. Maybe I heard a while ago that I think our assessors have about $70 million across the state in funds, and so maybe if we were even asked for that, it would be for those who do not have any funds available, can show they don't have any funds that they could use possibly for this.
Right. I mean, I'll just lay it all out here. I get about $250,000 annually from reimbursements, from my parcel reimbursements. When I'm paying over $60,000 annually for this guide, that takes a big bite out of that $250,000. So,
any other questions? Senator Berger.
What is the parcel reimbursement rate now? $3?
I believe it's $330 at the current time. I heard that they were going to try to cut it, but I don't believe that's happened yet, so I hope it doesn't.
Are the parcel counts still frozen too, or is it?
No.
You can
my
add
parcel
to
count, no, it's not frozen.
Okay.
No, sir.
Thank you.
You bet.
Seeing no other questions, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Scott Kimball, on behalf of the Missouri Association of School Administrators, we'd like to go on record in support of House Bill 816. It's a good, common sense bill that protects taxpayers. Look forward to the bill signing. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the committee. For the record, Steve Hobbs, Executive Director for the Missouri Association of Counties, in support of House Bill 816. We've been a fan of this legislation for a couple years now, and to address one of the questions there about why we would want the State Tax Commission to purchase this manual, really important is the state of Missouri can go out for competitive bids and making sure that they're getting the correct price, whereas right now it's a committee formed by the Assessors Association that put that bid together and go out for that book. And so that was the reasoning behind that addition, if it was needed. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, member of the committee, Mark Figgenbaum with Missouri Farm Bureau, testifying in favor of HB 816. We think this is a very sensible approach to vehicle assessment, and we don't think that a vehicle should be assessed for more than it was the year before while it's depreciating. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support? Anybody in opposition? Anybody for informational purposes? Seeing none. Representative Reedy, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for hearing this bill. I think it is a real common sense approach to take care of a problem that could occur again, and we really need to protect our taxpayers from that. And with that, thank you.
Our next and final bill for today will be Senate Bill 599, sponsored by Senator Gregory. Senator, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Berger, members of the committee, David Gregory, St. Louis County 15. Before you is Senate Bill 599. It's a tax assessment bill, and what this bill does is it addresses two different things. First off, in an appeal of your property taxes, your real estate property taxes, if your appeal is successful to the tune of 15% or more for residential reduction, we get to hit the assessor with up to $5,000 in attorney's fees and any other costs that it would have costed you to successfully win that appeal. So that's a great thing. It's keeping them honest. It also addresses protests and refunds. Property owners, they pay taxes under protest, right? So, hey, look, this is too high. I'm going to pay the taxes as you've deemed they're due under protest, and then I'm going to appeal. Well, these appeals take a long time. They could take months, years. And so who is getting the benefit of holding on to that cash? Well, of course, the state is. And so what we're doing here is we are going to punish these county assessors. If you are coming in too high, it's going to cost you. So you're going to pay interest to our successful taxpayer with a successful appeal. And we are also then giving a time limit due. So we're seeing once the taxpayer wins, how long does the county have to pay them? It takes months, sometimes years. It's just ridiculous. This requires them to pay within 30 days, and if they don't, we're going to punish them again with more interest, compounding on the interest they already owe. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody to testify in support of Senate Bill 599? And when you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator. Gotta hit the button. Member of the committee, my name is Tad Berry. I'm with Property Assessment Review. I represent taxpayers across Missouri in appeals of their assessments, both residential and commercial. We strongly support this bill. It has many necessary fixes and protections for taxpayers that are appealing their assessments. That is becoming a more common theme of having to appeal your assessment, certainly in Jackson County, but ongoing as assessments increase, taxpayers deserve the right to have a fair appeal process. Senator Gregory alluded to, we have a ongoing problem in getting refunds processed timely by county assessors. In St. Louis County, it takes 6 months or more to get a refund processed, and that's after an often years-long appeal process at the State Tax Commission. Currently, our State Tax Commission appeals are taking 2+ years to get to a resolution. The other thing this does is it does actually assist somewhat in the controversy of 15% inspection increases. That was a Jackson County issue that is ongoing, as you know, but that applies to all Missouri counties. If the assessor wants to increase by 15%, they need to perform a physical inspection. Come out and look at your home. What this would do is clarify that in the event the assessor fails to properly do that, the taxpayer is entitled to have the assessment voided and returned to the prior year, the previous year. Currently, the law says that the taxpayer shall prevail as a matter of law. However, that's fairly ambiguous. We've seen some decisions or guidance that should roll back 15%. I've also seen some appeals where the taxpayer is asking for $0 valuation, which perhaps if they prevail as a matter of law, they get a $0 valuation. I don't know if that's particularly fair either. This says if the inspection is not completed, it rolls back to the previous assessment until the assessor can actually complete that inspection. The only other item I want to touch on very briefly is that this does have the ability for a taxpayer to equalize their home amongst other homes that are the same situation. So what I mean by that is if I own a home, let's say I just paid $100,000 for that home, and the assessor says my home's worth $100,000, I might think that's a fair valuation. If I look up and down my street, similar homes, very similar homes, and they're all valued at, let's say, $80,000. I'm starting to wonder why everybody else is getting 20% lower valuation than I am. And then I'm thinking, okay, if I'm paying fair market value, how do I appeal that? Because I got to carry the tax burden for everybody that's 20% lower than I am. If everybody's valued at 80,000, same home, same year built, I'm just paying 100,000. I should be entitled to an equalization, effectively taking me to 80,000. I only want to pay my fair share. So this bill will allow a definitive way to prove that, and if it is proven and the taxpayer is successful in appeal, I could be awarded an assessment basically at what my neighbors are paying. And that's a pretty common complaint in our appeal process right now that I see day in and day out. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate the committee's time.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support? Anybody to testify in opposition? Please proceed.
My name is Kenny Moore, Boone County Assessor. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri State Assessors Association. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to testify today. One clarification, it says common level of assessment, or assessment. I assume they're referring to the 2-year ratio study that the State Tax Commission does. It really never says that in statute or in the bill, so I'm curious to that. If that is the case, there raises a question of the reliability of that ratio study. Typically, Missouri is a non-disclosure state. In order to have an accurate ratio study, they would have to have access to all the sales, just not a sample, all the sales, which they do not. They also, typically when they do their ratio study, they take sales 6 months before the date of valuation, which is 1/1 of the tax year, and 6 months after the date of valuation, which I find is kind of ironic because in State Tax Commission appeals that Boone County has had, where we have used data after the date of valuation, the hearing officers have basically thrown them out, said it's irrelevant, can't use it. So why is the State Tax Commission allowed to use sales 6 months after the date of valuation when their own hearing officers won't allow it in trial? The other thing is impounding the collectors paying back fees within a 30-day period. The issue we have here is once a decision is rendered by the State Tax Commission or circuit court, the complainant or the respondent has 30 days in which to appeal that. So if within that 30 days, if the collector has to basically refund the money to that taxpayer, I mean, it's pretty much over with. So that's the issue there. The other thing is lowering property values to the assessment ratio that is governed by the level of assessment here could theoretically kind of backdoor a tax increase, because if I lower all the values to my ratio and the taxing jurisdictions are not at their ceiling, they can raise their levies to offset the loss in revenue. Then when I go back in 2 years and do my general reassessment, raise values, because that's what the State Tax Commission says that I have to do. If the market has increased, which typically it does, then if the taxing jurisdictions don't roll their levies back, that's a tax increase. So that's all I have. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else to testify in opposition? Seeing none. Anybody for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator Gregory, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Okay. I need a motion. With no other business, I'll take make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.